Hey guys, what's up? So as you guys know, if you watched my previous review, which was of the slasher flick Headless, you would know that I've got a job. I finally have a job now, and I actually have another one lined up. I have an interview like a week from now for it, and hopefully I get that one because it's going to be at a movie theater, and that's far better for me than a fast food place. But since I'm working, I can't upload as much, so like I promised, I will be doing these little flick of the week videos where I choose a random, well, not a random movie, but I choose a movie that I have watched recently or a movie that I would recommend and kind of sort of review it and talk about it for a bit. So this week's flick of the week is I actually had a hard time picking this. It was between two movies from 1986. One was a slasher film and the other is a fantasy horror film. And I decided to go with the fantasy horror film because I feel like that one's a lot more underrated. So this week's flick of the week is Rawhead Rex. Rawhead Rex is written by Clive Barker, the man who directed and created Hellraiser, Nightbreed. He also created Candyman. He wrote the short story that Midnight Meat Train is based on. He has he's a very big name in the horror genre, and this is one of his earliest attempts at writing a film or working on a film. And he often he has said in interviews that even though this is based on one of his short stories, that this is his least favorite adaptation of his short story of one of his writings, and he has also stated that he doesn't think it's a very good adaptation at all, and it's been forgotten, and the DVD of it is out of print now. It's a very rare movie, but luckily someone has uploaded it to YouTube. So it's a British, Irish horror film, and it is basically about Rawhead Rex, who is a pagan god who is awakened in Ireland, or I'm pretty sure it's Ireland because they mentioned going to Dublin, so, who was awakened in Ireland, and he's basically this big, 9-foot tall raging monster that goes around killing people. Now this seems really out of character for someone like Clive Barker, considering his films usually have a lot of mythos and are very Lovecraftian in their kind of storytelling and kind of fantasy style. This one still has a lot of those elements, and the movie does have a very nice atmosphere, and surprisingly it's not as gory as his other films. This is probably the least violent film I've ever seen from him. But still, it's the movie itself is really well made. The effects are really good. Rawhead Rex looks like a really cool kind of hulking monster. The characters are interesting. There's a point when one of the priests in the film becomes possessed by Rawhead Rex and ends up just kind of going crazy and doing all sorts of weird stuff, and that really adds to the film all over. One of Barker's biggest complaints about the film is that Rawhead Rex, as a monster, looks, he said, and I quote, "It looks like a 9-foot tall penis with teeth," and I honestly can't see where that comes from. I mean, I could kind of see that maybe with how his head is kind of shaped like the head of a dick, but I still don't see it all the way. But that was his biggest complaint about the film, was that Rawhead Rex did not look like he wanted him to. But overall, it's a really, really cool, not super violent, but still has a decent amount of gore, interesting little fantasy horror flick, and definitely a very interesting, early film from Clive Barker. It's definitely not the best film that his works are based on, and it's definitely not his masterpiece when it comes to him writing or directing. He didn't direct the film, he wrote it, though. But still, it's it's a very cool movie though, and I would highly recommend it. It's definitely his like least known like film, and it has a pretty decent sized cult following, but currently it holds like a 4.5 average rating out of 10 on IMDb, which is really sad considering that like Midnight Meat Train and Clive Barker's Book of Blood, you know, and a lot of other stuff that is either directed by him or written by him or that's based on something from him. All of those usually have a bit of at least a 5 out of 5 rating, and this one doesn't, which is really sad. Maybe it's because he said he doesn't like the film as much as his others, and you know, people are just like, oh well, then I shouldn't like it. But honestly, this is very similar to Guillermo del Toro's Mimic. It's underrated, underseen, and it's a film that Guillermo del Toro has disowned himself. Not because he did. It wasn't because he didn't like the film. It was because of distribution rights with Miramax. But I'm talking about Rawhead Rex, not Mimic. So yes, I would highly recommend you check out Rawhead Rex if you haven't. If you are a fan of Clive Barker's writing, if you are a fan of his work in general, it's a really interesting, really cool movie. Again, it is not as good as Nightbreed or Hellraiser or Candyman or any of his other films, or any of the other films, again, based on his stuff, but I don't know, I really like it. It's, there's just something about it. It doesn't have a lot going for it, but for some reason I can't help but really like it. That's it for this week's Flick of the Week, and I will see you guys next time with maybe a review this Sunday or Saturday. Maybe I might be working a bit. So anyway, guys, I am going to go you know, just chill out and edit this video and edit like 3 other videos that I've done for other things. So yeah, peace.